Welcome to The Record Show, your virtual spin around the vinyl industry. Brought to you by Radio Wasteland Records. Yes, Midland has a record store. Here's your host, Jim Gleason.
Greetings from the Wasteland, and welcome to another edition of The Record Show. As always, we've got a fun one headed your way today. We'll check in with Ken at Ingram and get caught up on all of this week's new releases. There's really only a few to talk about, but we'll also look way ahead to September for a really big box set release headed your way then. And we'll also revive the installment of questionable decisions in album cover art design. But first, I'd like to ask those of you who are new to our channel to please make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure to enable notifications so you won't miss out on anything that we've got going on here. Also, please feel free to comment on our videos, especially a little bit later in this video, asking for your opinion on our first segment. And that segment is about soundtracks. More specifically, soundtracks that I feel need to be reissued on vinyl. Some of them have gotten limited reissues. Some have only had the original pressing way back when it was first released. But soundtrack albums are a cool addition to any collection. Essentially, they're a various artist LP most of the time. Sometimes they are orchestral in nature, but the various artist ones are the fun ones, and they really represent a movie that you do enjoy and a way to relive that, especially if that movie contained a lot of cool music. Now, what brought this on was a couple of weeks back, we talked about the Repo Man soundtrack. This was a reissue, a reimagined version, or a tribute to the Repo Man soundtrack from the original back in 1984. And while this is a cool and fun album to have in the collection, it's not the original. And sometimes I find myself yearning for an original version of that. Now, they're out there and you can find them on places like Discogs. Sometimes they're a little pricey, but sometimes they're not. But it's always fun to have a good vinyl copy of this. So right off the bat, and I think this goes without saying since we talked about this before, that Repo Man is one of those soundtracks that I think is deserving of another wider run, the original version, on vinyl itself. Another one from that era. You folks are going to notice, too, that this is giving away a little bit of my taste in movies, and none of them are that excellent of a movie. I'll take that back. They are more cult-like in a way. My family calls them rated J. But another one of these that is a rarity on vinyl, if you find it, is the soundtrack to the older Nicolas Cage movie, Valley Girl. This is essentially a Romeo and Juliet-esque type of movie with Nick Cage playing a punk in California who falls in love with a valley girl that's quite out of his league. No bees in this one, by the way. But the soundtrack is really kind of a neat little picture of that crossover between what they consider to be punk for the movie, but really is early alternative music. Now, that soundtrack was originally released in 1983. And there have been some reissues in Japan from 2014. Some of them are regularly priced, but oddly enough, there's a version out there that goes between $400 to $500 on Discogs. Now, another 1980s B movie, if you will, that has had a few reissues, but really could stand a wider reissue, is The Return of the Living Dead. This has got a really cool song on there from Rocky Erickson from the 13th Floor Elevators, Burn the Flames. This is a takeoff of zombie movies from the mid-80s, and it's a fun romp regardless. But the soundtrack itself is also very cool. Originally done in 1985, it has been, as I'd mentioned, reissued several times throughout the 2000s by Real Gone Music. But those reissues have been very limited in nature, of course, making them very sought after and very valuable. But also, I think Return of the Living Dead is something that really could go for a wider release vinyl reissue, in my humble opinion as well. Okay, onwards to some films from the Coen Brothers. These guys are great filmmakers. I am a big fan of theirs. When I used to teach film, they were always a go-to as far as studying of technique. But their music in a lot of their movies is also something that really helps those films stand out. And a lot of that music is done by a guy by the name of Carter Burwell. One of my favorite Coen films is Raising Arizona. Now, that soundtrack for Raising Arizona has been released on vinyl way back when the film came out in the mid-80s. but it was divvied up with one side Raising Arizona, the other side another Coen Brothers film of Blood Simple. And I truly think, and although it's not everybody's taste in music because it does have some, well, yodeling from Carter Burwell on there, but Raising Arizona really needs a standalone reissue on vinyl. It ain't Ozzie and Harriet, but I would buy that one in a heartbeat. Another one, and this is going to be a curveball thrown at you that I think, well, maybe not, is No Country for Old Men, the Coen Brothers film. And I'll tell you what, in the comments below, you tell me why I don't think this one will ever be issued on vinyl or any other way as well. But think about the music that you heard throughout No Country for Old Men, and that might be your clue. Now, going back to the mid-1980s, there's a film done by Michael Mann, which is an adaptation of a Thomas Harris book named Red Dragon. That film is Manhunter. Now, the soundtrack was available when released in 1986 on vinyl. In fact, I had a copy, and for some reason, like so many of us who have had vinyl, let that one go for one reason or another and regretted it. But it has been reissued. This one was done by Waxworks Records a while ago. Now, this is actually kind of cool because it's a die-cut cover, and there are mirrors, little mirrored pieces from the inner sleeve in the die-cut that show through. If you've seen the film, or if you've read the book, you'll understand why this is. And Waxwork did a great job reissuing this. But the original version would be a cool one. Now, the film marks the first film appearance of the character Hannibal Lecter. Again, go back and read the Thomas Harris book and or see the film. The film's a bit dated nowadays, but still, I think, holds up. But the soundtrack is a cool one. Features several cuts by Shriekback and the Reds on here. But most famously, again, alluding to the film, there's a full version of Iron Butterflies In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida on here, and that mixes well with the visuals from the film at that point in time. But Manhunter, even though it has been reissued by Waxwork in 2018, deserves another go-round for a wider release so folks can enjoy this music compiled for the film. Now, from the 90s, another one that I really wish I'd picked up at the time is the soundtrack for Pump Up the Volume, a Christian Slater film, where he plays a pirate radio DJ. I know everybody was worried that I was going to do that at some point in time, but never really pulled the trigger on it. But the soundtrack is also a great one. You've got Bad Brains with Henry Rollins, The Pixies, Liquid Jesus, Above the Law, Soundgarden, Sonic Youth, and the Cowboy Junkies. It is really a cool album. And Pump Up the Volume, please, 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 record labels. Let's see another version of that one on vinyl. Okay, I'm going back to the 1970s for this one. And this is a film that is a great war film. It's a heist film. Some would consider it a Western as well. And its soundtrack from 1970 is Kelly's Heroes. It's just pure cheese as far as the music goes. It's really kind of a snapshot of the time with Kelly's Heroes and Burning Bridges, one of the main theme songs. Again, pure schlock, pure cheese, but it's fun because it's from Kelly's Heroes. Now, this one was reissued as well in 1981. This is an original from my collection, but if you're a fan of the movie, I think this deserves another go-round and a much wider release as well. Again, with the negative waves, by the way. And finally, I'm going to show my age off on this one. You know, long before YouTube was a widely watched thing, I would tell people about this television show from the 70s called HR Puffin Stuff. And when I describe it, people would look at me like I was, well, a little out there. But it did exist, and now thanks to YouTube, we can actually watch episodes of this. But the soundtrack to the Sid and Marty Crofts HR Puffin Stuff with Billy Hayes, Martha Raye, and Jack Wilde from 1970 is when this one is from, is basically just exactly what you would think it'd be. It's the singing flute. If I Could is on here, the Puffin Stuff theme. Oh, you know, I'll leave it kind of there. But this one, I think, for nostalgia's sake only, really could use a vinyl rebump and a reissue on this one. Okay, so that's my short list of soundtracks that I really feel need to be reissued on vinyl. Please feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below. Did I miss anything, or is there a soundtrack that's just not readily available as well that you think deserves to be reissued? Joining us now on the Record Show, it's time once again to check in with Ken Norton from Ingram Entertainment to get us caught up on all of this week's releases and a couple in the future we'll get to as well. Ken, how are you today?
Doing well. How you doing, Joe?
Good, thanks, man. I hate to ask this, but we're getting closer now. How are things going with the Record Store Day the movement through you guys to get to us stores?
It's going well. It's going well. Most of the product is in our warehouses, or singular warehouse in this case, and starting to ship the furthest away first, and closest last. But we expect to get the vast majority of the stuff to the stores in advance for them to be able to check it in and price it up, and even talk about it on here.
There we go. Looking forward to it.
If you want to. So,
it should be a fun one. So we're looking forward to the work. How's that?
Absolutely.
It's always fun.
Yeah, we've got some updates on some titles that have bumped out because of production issues. This production issues on vinyl is an ongoing thing that we're all dealing with, and some things just didn't make it in time.
Okay, we'll get that list and pass that along at some point too, so folks have a more informed choice to make on the 17th when that drop hits.
Sure.
Okay. Well, as far as this week's releases go, it's a little lighter with the holiday weekend approaching.
It is. That's right. Not a ton to talk about, but there are some things of note, and certainly some big names. So there is a Fish Lawn Boy reissue on green vinyl, sort of. They're calling it the olfactory color. So I guess it's supposed to look like it smells like fresh cut lawn or something. And it's actually kind of a smeary kind of green. There's a allocated title, so that's you want to get yours very soon if you need a copy of it.
Now this is odd. I mean, we have gone for so long without Fish stuff regularly or like widely available on vinyl. So
Right.
it's good that a couple weeks ago we had those 2 live ones drop,
Right.
and now this one. And so maybe it's a trickle, but they're still allocated, so they're going to be rare and sought after.
They're rare. Those 2 new live records I don't think are as rare as these reissues.
Yep.
So if you need to have them, go ahead and get that. Speaking of colored vinyl reissues, Clutch has the Blast Tyrant record on a couple of albums, a couple of slabs. One's blue and one's orange. That's their record from 2004 reissue.
Okay.
And also Shinedown, The Sound of Something, cut off there on my screen. I don't recall exactly the full title. That's on
A Shinedown.
There's a series of their vinyl titles coming out on vinyl, and that's one of them coming this week. Look for some more if you're a fan. The biggest record of the week is the Tom Petty. It's called Angel Dream. Songs from the motion picture She's the One. So you might remember, if you're a Petty fan, that there was a She's the One soundtrack, and it had the songs were by Petty. This is a reimagined version of that, more as a Tom Petty album than a soundtrack album. And they've added on 4 tracks that were not on the soundtrack, and as well as another extended version of one of the other songs. And it looks, the cover looks like a Tom Petty record instead of a soundtrack, and it's really kind of a different experience. And Petty fans will definitely be interested in this one.
Gonna say the Petty fans are a loyal batch, and they'll be looking to grab that one.
Yep. I think that's going to be a popular one.
Now, further out, and I know we don't like bringing up things too far in the future, but this is actually kind of a big release looking toward, my date here says September 10th. And that is Metallica. One of their biggest albums is getting the biggest box set treatment here.
The Black Album, we call it usually.
Yep.
It's just self-titled Metallica. It's getting a anniversary remaster, and there's a standard regular remastered version, which is a regular price for an album, $24.98, not too bad. But if you are a hardcore fan, there is a box set, and that box set is start with the price. $249.98 is the list
Holy
price
cow.
for the box set. For that, you get it's a limited edition. It's numbered, has a magnetic flap. It includes the LP and the CD, a Sabbath True picture disc, 3 live LPs, 14 CDs, 6 DVDs, featuring unreleased content from live shows, rough mixes, and demos. There's an MP3 card to download all the audio, tour lanyards, 3 lithographs, 3 guitar picks, a lyric folder, and a 120-page hardcover book. Hardcover book. Never before.
Well, it could be hardcore book too.
For the hardcore fan, for sure.
Indeed.
So there you go. You get a lot, you pay a lot.
That is, I mean, it's a steep price, but looking at that package, that's kind of that's an all-around good box set to have for the Metallica fan, and that's coming on September 10th as well. Sure. I did read too that Bob Ludwig's in charge of the remastering of that remastered Black Album, so that should be a very, very nice sounding piece of vinyl.
It should be. It should be. And there's another piece to put on your radar if you're a Metallica fan. There's a record called Blacklisted, I think is the name of it. It's not, okay. I don't have all the details on it yet, but it's about 50 or 60 different artists covering songs from the Black Album. And it runs the gamut. It's just kind of all kinds of artists, everything from like, Chris Stapleton and Jason Isbell to some Spanish-speaking artists to some, very pop-leaning people, and Miley Cyrus, and just all kinds of, and people on the more hard rock spectrum too, and just everybody who loved that record, whether they are in that genre or not, contributing to this thing. So pretty interesting. Coming, I think that's coming in like November, I believe.
Okay, we'll dig up some more info on that when it becomes available and pass that along. That sounds like a fun one. And there's been several of these kind of tribute albums coming out as some of these iconic albums get a little bit past their prime, so to speak. And it's great to see these other artists reimagining their hits. I'm always a sucker for cover albums, as long as they're done in such a way that makes that it adds something new to the original songs. Oh
yeah, me too. If people are interested, there's a YouTube video of snippets of people performing various pieces, okay. And it's a fun watch.
We'll look for that, and I'll put that link down below in our descriptions for folks that want to take a closer look.
Awesome.
All right, Ken, well, thank you very much. I know you guys are busy, so we always appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. And ever forward to Record Store Day drop number 2 on the 17th.
Oh, yeah. All right, good talking to you.
All right, have a good week. Thanks.
Thanks, you too.
And finally today, it's been a while, so I thought we could revisit the segment, Questionable Decisions in Album Cover Art Design. And for that, we go back to 1989 and a gentleman by the name of Daryl Tupes. Now, this is Tupes' first album, and it's best known for the hit Lifeguard. Originally, I thought this may have been connected to Blotto's hit, I Want to Be a Lifeguard.
I want to be a lifeguard. Help, 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 help. I want to guard your life.
But no, it isn't. This is Tupes' own work. It's a song that I sort of kind of remember, and you sort of kind of remember seeing that on MTV. But regardless, it is a representative tune of the late 80s.
This must be love, it must be love. Let me be your lifeguard. As we walk along the sands of time, I'll give you all the love that you need. Let me be your lifeguard.
Now, what brings this album into the realm of questionable decisions in album cover art design is the reflection in Tupes' sunglasses. You'd like to think that at some point in the design of this, someone would have noticed you could see the photographer and tripod in the reflection in his sunglasses. Photoshop, by the way, was invented in 1987, although it was a little rudimentary at the time. But even then, there were ways to fix this. Tupes, by the way, did go on to a long career of creating his own music and collaborating with many other artists. And today, he teaches music at the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University.
It must be love. This must be love. It must be love. Let me be your lifeguard. As we walk along the sands of time, I'll give you all the love that you need. Let me be your lifeguard. Let me be the one who fills your cup
Thanks for watching The Record Show. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe to the Radio Wasteland Records YouTube channel. And be sure to hit that notifications bell so you'll be alerted every time we upload new content.